Hello everyone and welcome to the latest webinar in our Innovations and Integration series. Today, Jenny Billings will discuss how she's improving student engagement and instructor workflow efficiencies with the Cengage MindTap integration for Learn. So just a few items to go over before we begin our presentation today. A reminder, a recording of today's session and the slide deck will be emailed to all registrants. If you are tweeting, you're welcome to use the social icons at the bottom of your screen. If you have questions for our presenter, please use the Q&A panel on the upper right-hand side. Questions will either be answered live or through the chat. And there's also a Contact Us form. So if you have a specific question regarding the integration or if you'd like further information, you can use that to contact us. So today, we are very lucky to welcome our presenter, Jenny Billings. Jenny is the chair of Academically Related Study Skills, English, Developmental Reading and English at Rowan-Cabarrus Community College in North Carolina. Jenny is also a faculty partner for Cengage and the faculty lead winner for OLC's Digital Learning Innovation Award in 2016. And we are also joined by Derek Sadie from Blackboard, who is moderating our session. Derek has been with Blackboard for over 13 years in various roles throughout the organization and is currently serving as our solutions engineer. So welcome, Derek. And Jenny, I'll let you take it from here.
Wonderful, thank you. Hey everybody, welcome to our webinar. I'm really excited to join you today and really honored to be here with Blackboard, so thank you all around. I am Jenny Billings. It's so nice to meet all of you. Thanks for joining us. I wanted to tell you a little bit about the institution that I represent and to give you an idea of our story and kind of how we got where we are. And then, as the title of our presentation suggests, I wanted to talk about how that has improved efficiencies for faculty and how we have seen increases in student engagement and student success. So the first slide here just shows you a little bit about Rowan-Cabarrus. We are in Concord and Salisbury, North Carolina. We're in 2 different counties, but we also include Kannapolis, which is a city that kind of works almost like its own county. We have 32 different degrees. A lot of those are fully online. We have 3 early colleges now. We have a really, really high population of high school students. I think they account for about 23 or 24% of our overall population. But we service about 20 to 25,000 students, depending on the year, annually. And we have 3 different campuses and then a multitude of sites with that increasing. And then we go to some of the high schools in order to teach some of those students as well. So we're very diverse. We're mostly a female population. Our students, as you can see there, the average age is 28 right now. But we're very diverse. Our campuses and our populations are very different depending on what campus and what county you're in. But we're very blessed to have that type of dynamic because we have found that that has really upped the ante and has really improved our teaching in general. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what inclusive access is and explain to you kind of how we got here. So inclusive access in our mind was a partnership that our institution did with Cengage Learning and Blackboard and Barnes & Noble. We have a bookstore on site that helped us with this. And so it was a 4-parted partnership, but honestly, the reason that we were sold on this partnership was because how well Blackboard and Cengage already interacted. This inclusive access program allowed our students to have their materials and the correct materials on day 1, which was a huge thing that we were looking for and what we wanted to kind of answer and what we wanted to fix with such a partnership. We built in the cost of student materials into their registration, which means that as soon as they register and pay for the course, they're also paying for the required digital materials at that time. We did not do an opt-out model when we rolled ours out. We felt like that is what our students were struggling with, that they were not able to purchase their materials on day 1 or were purchasing the wrong things, and we wanted to make sure that they had what they needed. This digital content is actually put directly into Blackboard or the learning management system, and I will show you actually later with a live demo of the course exactly how we're able to hyperlink or deep link it directly into Blackboard into our courses. so our students know exactly what we assign, how to get to it, what we expect them to read or access. And I'm excited to say that we were the first community college in North Carolina in order to partner with Cengage. I still think we're one of the largest implementations of this, and clearly we are really excited to be here to talk about it today. So this is a graphic that I got from Cengage when we first started the Inclusive Access Model. We call it the eText Initiative, also at Rowan-Cabarrus. But this was something that we were finding with our students. Our students were coming to class ill-prepared. They were finding that they couldn't afford the materials that we were requiring. And that was really something that was really bothering us, that our students weren't able to afford printed textbooks, and so they were opting to go without. This is probably true for institutions that you work for. The students just have to choose between survival and life and their materials, and we wanted to help. And so that's why we looked at a digital model, and that also helped us with the bookstore, because the bookstore was selling out and our students were having to stand in lines and they were getting frustrated about that. And so we felt like this partnership would benefit all four of us, so Blackboard, Cengage, Rowan-Cabarrus, and Barnes & Noble. So I just talked about this, but these were the reasons that we were really interested. So just to give you a little bit of background about me, I've been at the institution for 6.5 years now, and so when I joined Rowan-Cabarrus as an instructor, I didn't really see all of these issues until I became full-time, because I think students are a little bit more comfortable with talking to you, you know, the more you're well-known around the campus. And we started to hear a lot of complaints about things, and I started to notice things, especially when I wanted to require supplemental materials for my classroom. And so I noticed it as an instructor, but I definitely noticed it as an administrator when I became the chair of English in fall 2012. So our students were using access codes when I first became chair. As you can probably guess, our students were coming up with all kinds of creative ways to use their access codes. So they were using them in the wrong places, or they would not purchase them, or they would throw them away, or it was the wrong code. And so we definitely wanted to get rid of those. We knew that the inclusive access model with Cengage would integrate beautifully into Blackboard. We confirmed that with Blackboard. That was something they were already doing with institutions around the country. Maybe not as large of a scale as we were doing, but there were already, you know, this type of model or template in place. We had a feeling that something like this would improve student success and retention, because we completely believed that because students didn't have their materials on day one, like you saw in the previous graphic, they were getting a step behind and then never really were able to catch up. And so we felt like if they had the correct things on day one, felt comfortable with what they had, that they would be more successful and we would retain them throughout the semester. We also wanted to look at this because we wanted to lower the cost of course materials. We didn't want materials for the course to harm our students by any means and for them to suffer. A lot of our students are on financial aid, and so we didn't want them depleting that with costs of materials. So that was another reason we looked at this model. And because we learned that this model was platform independent. So as long as students had a device that could successfully access the internet and Blackboard, they were able to access their materials. And so that was obviously something that was very, very attractive to us, and something honestly that we wanted to test out. So once we started learning about this model, we really had to come up with what we thought the benefits were, because as you can imagine, this was a pretty hard sell, not only for our students, but for the institution as a whole and for our administration. This was something totally different than what we were doing, and so I really had to kind of weigh the benefits and the things that could go wrong, and these were ultimately the benefits that we were looking for and that we have absolutely found, but you know, it was something that I really, really had to consider to make sure that this was something that I wanted to pursue. But for faculty, we knew that this would help students come prepared to class. I can't tell you the number of times my faculty would email me and say, hey, Jenny, the bookstore sold out, or, oh, no, we have the wrong edition, or, oh, our students are, you know, buying things last minute and they're not going to get them till week 2 or 3 or 4. And our institution runs 4, 8, 14, and 16-week classes. So you can imagine how impactful negatively that was when our students were not getting materials until weeks 2, 3, and 4, sometimes even later than that. We also felt that going digital would enhance the content that our instructors already had in Blackboard. We are a very, very digital school when it comes to Blackboard because all of our courses have shells in Blackboard. They access their syllabus and edit directly through Blackboard. And then, of course, this is for traditional, web-based, hybrid, or fully online classes. We do have a digital presence. And so we felt like if we went even more digital and our students had access to e-texts and other resources, it would just improve things all the way around for faculty and for students. We also felt like if students were more actively engaged in their e-text and the learning management system as a whole, that they would be more engaged and more satisfied. For students, it, of course, reduced costs, so it made it more affordable. They didn't have to shop around because we did that for them when we created this platform. And honestly, it has become more affordable the larger the scope of our initiative, which we've been really pleased with. They didn't have to have access codes unless it was for, you know, a new class or a new program joining us. We would do access codes first and then eventually eliminate those. But for the most part, our students do not need access codes at all. And again, platform independence. So we were finding that this was working beautifully on tablets, on phones, MacBooks, laptops, any kind of Android system. It just works really great for our institution. And then for the college, of course, it improves student retention because it supports their success. It makes sure they're prepared from day one. We used to get quite a few complaints and tech support cases, you know, where our students were unfamiliar with Blackboard in general because they just didn't utilize it that much, or we would add in a third-party resource or a digital software, and you know, our students would panic because it was new. And we have found by offering this type of platform through so many different courses and in large divisions, this has helped us streamline the learning curve when it comes to technology at our institution. So we've been really excited about that. And of course, we don't have lines at the bookstore anymore. But don't think that we've cut them out entirely. They are part of this partnership. We do offer a loose leaf option where we have really cost-effective loose leaf 3-hole punch versions of our e-text books that are in the bookstore that they still sell and, you know, kind of save for us. And so that has been a really great model as well. So I'm going to pause right here and see if there are any questions that have come in that you would like for me to answer at this juncture. How we doing, Derek? You see any for me? All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and go to the next slide then. So when you hear inclusive access or an e-text initiative, I want to kind of help you understand how large of a rollout this was. Obviously, when you are going into such an initiative like this, you probably think, oh, we need to tiptoe in and we need to do just a few courses at a time. Well, we did through pilots and preparing for this model, absolutely. But we really, really went big, as you can see, when we rolled out the actual inclusive access model or e-text initiative in fall 2014. So just so you can see, I want you to see kind of the numbers. So when we first rolled it out, the very first semester of the actual model, we were in 11 courses, and that means we were in all sections of 11 courses. So it impacted about 4,300 seats. And the way we say seats is because this could be one student, but in 3 of the e-text courses. And so that's like why we like to say seats instead of students. And then in spring, the very next semester, we added 2 additional courses in English, which of course is what I'm over. And so that was another 3,500 seats. And then the very next year, fall of 2015, we were in almost 5,600 seats because we were in 14 courses, but the stars or the asterisks there are just to delineate that we had an e-handbook there as well. which I'll explain once we get to our course timeline. So over a year period, we impacted 13,332 seats across our courses. We had only 24 technical support cases that escalated all the way to the Cengage level because I am ultimately the one that they come to first because I'm a faculty partner with Cengage, and really felt like we needed to have somebody on the ground that would work for not only the institution but also Cengage as well. We only had one case out of the 24 out of the possible 13,000 that we couldn't resolve, and that was simply because the students, her device did not have flash, and so it unfortunately just would not take the software. So what we've done in order to help our students with that is we've actually put devices in our bookstores that are really cost effective that they can use financial aid to purchase. And so that was our response for the concern that students wouldn't have Wi-Fi, or they wouldn't have a device at home, or they wouldn't be able to get into computer labs at the institution. That was how we handled those concerns of our administration and of our students. So I just want to show you
Jenny,
kind of this. Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, just a couple questions.
Okay.
I think I may have seen Kim answering, but real quick, one question was if you've had any experience with ESL or ELL populations. I know it's a pretty small group in your first start, so I didn't know.
Yeah, I do.
If that's something you can.
Sure. Yeah, sure. So I actually taught high school before I came to the community college level and had some experience there. We do have an ESL department at our institution. And we are currently working with our LRC, who's working with us with MindTap and other digital platforms and things like that in order to best serve ELL, ESL, and then those that would need, accessibility concerns and things like that. So we have had great success with that just because it is so engaging, and we do offer access to this technology on campus while they are in these classes. And so, yes, we've had success with those populations as well.
Excellent. And then one other question, and I've had the same trouble when I was teaching at a community college in North Carolina, which is somebody asked, I found that older students drop the course if an e-text is used. How can this be mitigated? I have my own thoughts on that, but you're the one running this show, so I was going to have you answer that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, well, that's actually why we did not offer an opt-out model. When we piloted, we would offer like English 111, for example. That's the first gateway curriculum course in English. When we piloted, we would run sections with e-text and we would run sections without e-text. And what was happening, as you suggest in your question, the older population, or those that were just not tech savvy, would opt for the non-e-text option. They would not even try it. And then, our high school population was going to the e-text and falling in love with it. Well, I just had this feeling, and I can't explain why I did, but I did. I knew that if we exposed them to this, because I believed in Blackboard and Cengage so much, that they would all benefit from it. And so we did not allow them to opt out of a digital product when they registered. We put this in all of our courses, including developmental courses, which I was told that I was crazy, but I told them that if I could sell it to developmental, I could sell it to any student. And that's why we did it, and it has worked beautifully. But we do have about 17% of our population. It actually fluctuates between about 8% and 17% that do opt to buy a loose leaf version of the text. So they can use the digital enhanced videos and quizzes and things like that, but when it comes to reading, they still want to hold something. And so we have loose leafs they can purchase for an additional cost that is completely optional, and those range anywhere from $7 to $21.40. So that is something that we have built into ours for that population. Great question.
Thanks.
Thank you. Well, that works out beautifully with this slide that you guys are seeing. So I wanted you to see kind of the difference between the three different versions of a textbook that our students would see. So all the way to the left is the printed version. For this book, for our students, this was costing them approximately $130 $140 after we were getting the bookstore markup. And this was just a printed textbook. This was without digital resources. This, of course, was when the edition first came out. The middle picture there, that is a loose leaf version. So that's what our students can opt to buy in addition to the e-text right here. And so it's costing about $21 is what they can do if they wish to do that. Again, that's only about 8% of English students that opt to do that. And what we're finding is that the students will buy a loose leaf, then wish they hadn't, and they're trying to return them. So we've actually put a code on our courses, please go to class first, which means please go try the e-text, see if you like it, because most of them do once they do, and then they don't actually opt to buy it. But we do have that option. And then the third image here all the way to the right, of course, is the actual e-text, which is beautiful and looks just like the other two versions, but it does have additional things there on the right-hand side because it is built in with digital apps and other resources for our students. So I wanted to show you kind of what the cost savings has been in English 111 based on changing from printed to digital. So the English 111 students, most of them do not purchase a loose leaf, which I think is, pretty true to the rest of the school because English 111, of course, is a gateway course, so it encompasses most of our students, if not all. And so because they were not buying a loose leaf and we went from print to digital, when we first rolled this initiative out, they were saving $35.88 or 30.5%. Is how much they were saving on their textbook. Now, this is before we've rolled out additional resources and other free digital products, but just book to book, printed to e-text, that's how much they were saving. Then I showed you the number of students that we saw over those 3 semesters or over that academic year. And so our students saved $102,000 just by us converting from print to a digital textbook. So this is probably my favorite thing to talk about because it's the timeline. I feel like this is something really important and something that you guys should really take to heart if this is something you're interested in doing. If you can't already tell, I'm in love with the initiative, but that's very much so because of the team that I worked with and the way we did it. And we did it so carefully and it just worked out so beautifully. And it's just something that I'm really passionate about. But I want to say, you will notice that this is a 5-year process. This wasn't something that my institution or I jumped into. This is something that we tested and we analyzed and we criticized and we really tried to break it, is what we called it, because we wanted to make sure that we were doing this for our students and not for the wrong reasons. So in fall 2012, that's when I became the chair of Curriculum English. I had been at the institution for about 1.5 years when I became chair. And the very first thing that I felt like we needed to do was we needed to go to common textbooks. At that time, our instructors were choosing any textbook or novel or supplemental materials that they wanted to. We were putting those requests into the bookstore. And as you can imagine, with almost 100 instructors requiring different things, that led to mix-ups in the bookstore. And so that was the very first thing that I felt like we needed to do. The next semester in spring 13, this is when I really got to know my representative with Cengage. And she said, hey, do you think you'd ever be interested in piloting digital? And we already had some of those concerns that we talked about earlier with cost and students not having the right materials and mix-ups and things like that. And so I said, yeah, I'd absolutely like to, but I would never require my faculty to do something that I wouldn't do myself. And so I piloted the courses personally. So I had 3 English 111 courses that I was teaching. That was 68 students that were there from the beginning of the class to the end of the course. And I surveyed the students in May of 2013, and I thought, I have no idea how they're going to respond to this. And they loved it. And I thought, this has got to be a fluke. Everybody told me they would hate this. This has to be a fluke. There's no way. And so I actually asked one of my faculty to pilot with me. And then we actually also piloted in communications courses as well, public speaking, because we wanted to make sure that this wasn't just true for English, that this could be something that would be institutional. And so we piloted additional courses, more students. We surveyed the students again, and they loved it again. And so I thought, oh my, we might be onto something. And so at this point, we decided to form a committee because we felt like we might be onto something, and we wanted to start planning immediately. So in the fall of 2013 through the spring is when our committee met, and we tried to design this as best we could, and we brought in participants from across the college because we knew that was significant. We needed someone from the business office and student services and accessibility, and from Blackboard. We have a Blackboard administrator at our institution. But we needed, the voice and the opinions of so many people because we wanted to make sure that this benefited everybody, but of course our students. So we brought in the SGA president. We brought in the students that we had surveyed that had seen it from day one. We brought in a lot of different opinions here. And I feel like that was really why it was so successful. In the summer of 2014, that's when we met to literally break it. That was probably my favorite thing about this initiative was we sat in a circle in the summer of 2014, and we literally thought out loud of every single thing that could squash this initiative. What are the things that can happen in August that will immediately shut this bad boy down and it won't go anywhere, and what could it be? And we decided, that was how we were going to address this. We would come up with FAQs. We would have a web page that addressed it. We would hold our students' hands. We would offer training on campus for faculty and students. This was a really empowering thing, and it was something I was really proud of, but I wanted to make sure that it got off the ground, and it got off the ground well. Fall 2014 was when we did a quote-unquote soft rollout. I've already told you those numbers. So 11 courses, over 4,000 seats were impacted. And at this juncture, it was CourseMate through Cengage. So while it was a digital product, it didn't have all the bells and whistles of what we have now. But it was something that, our students really adjusted well to, and we did survey results for that. Spring 15, we gained some more momentum. We decided to expand it into 2 additional courses, and we added MindTap features. So we had more analytic capabilities, and we had a lot more digital resources. By fall 2015, we were all in. So we were into over 20 courses at that juncture. We had MindTap capabilities and a lot of different digital resources that were given to students for free. We were already seeing a large decrease in the amount of loose leafs that were being purchased because students were becoming more familiar. In fall 2016, we converted our MindTap readers into full MindTap courses, which has led to even more student engagement, faculty engagement, because they can personalize their courses, and overall satisfaction. And then this fall that we're in now, we've expanded now into 2 different divisions. So it's liberal arts, we're in information technologies, we're in mathematics now. So we have really, really expanded quite successfully across the college. We started with 11 courses. We're now in over 60 courses, all sections. So we're impacting tens of thousands of students, which is amazing. And now we're planning a template using digital products to benefit our high school populations. So I'm going to pause here for any questions that we have at this point.
Yeah, so actually this is a great one asked by Bonnie. I think I know the answer, but she's asking, who is the we in quotation marks? I'm imagining it's you and kind of the team that did the initial pilot, but I would imagine you are working with, fellow instructors and probably some other resources at your school, as well as folks from Cengage?
Absolutely, yes. So lots of different faculty members that were there, the team, the committee that we had created. And then Cengage, I had an amazing team with Cengage between IT and my rep. I have like 5 or 6 people at Cengage that I knew who I could go to. And then I became a faculty partner through the midst of this process to make sure I was on site and a contact for the initiative. So absolutely, it was definitely a team, which is why I say we instead of I. Absolutely.
Great. I also have to joke, seeing as how I also taught at a community college in North Carolina, the question was, how can you require all faculty to use a common text? Our union insists on academic freedom. Everyone can choose their own text and how they teach the required material. And I just laughed at the thought of a union when I worked at Guilford Tech. It was, In my experience, many times the instructor was able to choose what they wanted, but often sometimes state choice for budgeting and things like that. Like, we switched over, everyone using the same tech to save money. I'm assuming it's fairly similar at your school as well.
Yeah, we are not a union institution, and we consider, while we use common text, the way we teach things is our academic freedom. And I've always said to my faculty, yeah, we're using the same materials, but how you approach things and how you teach your students is absolutely your choice and your right, as long as you're teaching the course objectives and using the materials that we've chosen. We're also in a unique situation because we're trying to make sure that our high school populations are saving money and that they're able to keep the same additions from semester to semester to benefit them. And this platform has really allowed us to do that.
I think that's all the questions so far.
Okay, great. So just so you can see kind of the satisfaction and where we went with the survey results. So these are just comparing the very first semester when we rolled out to the next semester, to semester 2. And so as you can see, our students thought it was a good value, 68% versus 71%. Our students were satisfied with the digital resources immediately, 1 and 2 semesters after the rollout. Most of our students, as you can see, had absolutely no trouble accessing the first time. There was a follow-up question to that. If you did have trouble, who did you contact? And most of the students did contact me first, and then we would escalate it to Cengage for those other 24 students we referenced earlier if we needed to. The loose leaf option, we asked them if they purchased a loose leaf. So as you can see, only 17.94% in English purchased, but we did have 53.25% opted for that loose leaf model. That's actually a skewed number because we provided loose leafs for developmental students for free that first year just to make sure that they were comfortable with the digital materials. And semester to semester, this number has dwindled down to almost 8%. But as you can see, the satisfaction rate was almost at 80% that very first semester, and then now we're in the 90s. So this is comparing the first year, so the first fall to the second fall. As you can see, things continue to grow. So the satisfaction rate, it went up to 82.36%. No trouble accessing almost 90% of our students. But when they have trouble accessing, it's a simple, I had my pop-up blocker on, because this does launch in a new window or in a new tab. So that's really the only concerns that they were having. They were using Internet Explorer, which is not a real fan of this technology, or they just had their pop-up blockers on. So that was something we were easily able to get around. The loose leaf option continued to come down, the number of students that were purchasing those, and then the overall satisfaction was almost at 89% by the first year. So I just want you to see all of the different courses that this was in within the first 3 years of implementation. This is by no means all of them because I've already told you that we're in 60 different ones at this point. But I just want you to see that it is in things from study skills to developmental reading and English, which is DRE English. It's in information technologies. It's in foreign language and Spanish. It's in communications. A lot of the gen ed courses, as you can see, it's now in math, accounting, developmental math. So we have really tried to encompass a lot of the different courses in order to streamline the experience and the technology for our students, because we felt like that would lead to greater retention and success if they continue to see things that they were familiar with, no matter what course or division of the college they were in. So I'm going to go into a live demo at this point just to kind of show you what this looks like. So I'm actually in our Blackboard shell right now. I am in an ACA 122 course, which is a study skills class for college transfer. And I'm in course content, which is where we put all of our assignments. But down here, we have important notes for our students regarding the digital content, just to make them aware of how it'll launch, what browser they should be in, that kind of thing. And then we have an e-text link that we provide for our faculty with instructions on how to get students access to the e-text. But what we're really proud of is that we have built modules with this content directly built in that will launch students directly to the reading assignments or directly to the assignments, so they don't have to wonder what is or is not assigned. So here in Module 1, this is an example of assigned readings that we would give them directly in the ebook. And so as you can see, they are linked directly here in Blackboard. We call these deep links, or they're just direct hyperlinks. So if students click on them, they will launch in a new tab or a window, and so they pop up just like this. And it usually doesn't take very long for that to buffer and that kind of thing, depending on their Wi-Fi strengths. But as you can see, this is already a beautiful partnership just in content between Blackboard and Cengage. They work really, really well together. And just for you to know, I'm in Firefox, but this works just as beautifully in Chrome. It works great in Safari. Internet Explorer is the only wonky one that we have found, but it has worked really, really well. But it takes the students directly to a chapter overview, and then from here, they can kind of click into wherever they would like in the book. From here, it's so customizable for faculty because there are edit buttons where they can add content directly into the learning pathways. So if they wanted students to read this first paragraph, for example, and then they wanted to add in an activity or a YouTube video or something like that, they could do that. It's also really customizable because inside of here, we can highlight. Our students have these options here where they can highlight in one of these colors, or faculty can highlight in orange, which automatically shares with our students. We can also add Post-it notes if we'd like to and tell our students to study for the test. And then we can share this with our students. So it's a really customizable hint, hint, this is what you should know kind of thing. There's a read speaker, which is wonderful for students who would prefer to have their text or need their text read to them. It's in 4 different speeds, male or female voice. There's even accents built in now. You can make the font bigger or smaller. You can bookmark entire pages and come back to those later. You can print pages if it's something that you need to write on or to have with you or to save. And then from here, there's all these apps that are built in. So these are all those digital resources that we were talking about that are now provided to our students for free. So there's homework assignments built in. They can link an Evernote account and take notes. You can link this to social media or an RSS feed. But the beautiful thing, this is probably my most favorite thing in the world, this is where all of the highlights and the notes populate. So your students can come here and they can actually study from one place. And so this has been just a lifesaver for a lot of our courses. They can look at all their bookmark pages, and then of course they can also create full study guides based on what they put in the e-text or what you as the instructor put on the e-text. So it's just something that I wanted to show you quickly. This is what our initiative is all about. It allows our students to interact with their text. We can see how long our students are in the textbook. We can see what they access. We have a progress app built in here that will show you how your students are doing. You know, if they are high performers or low performers, we can see all of that. We can see, you know, kind of what students we need to connect with and who we need to reach out to. And it's just a really, really great product and has been just a beautiful platform. So I wanted to show you that real quickly because I didn't think it made sense to talk about a model and you not actually see the digital component. But I'm going to switch back over to presentation mode now. So now that you've seen the product, now that you know what the initiative looks like, let's talk about the kind of success we've had. So when I came to my vice president at the time with this initiative, and he said, Jenny, I need you to understand that this is going to fall on you because you were the faculty lead here. Is this something you're sure you want to do? And I said, absolutely, I believe in it. And by the way, I want to put it in developmental courses. So I did, and this is our developmental data. So this is for developmental reading in English. This is our highest level, which is 098 in North Carolina. There's an 099, but we don't offer it at our institution. But I just wanted to show you what our pass rates look like. And the only thing that we've done over these 2 years is that we've implemented the ESEX initiative or inclusive access, and that we've continued to add digital resources as we talked about earlier. So kind of our baseline, that very first semester where we had just rolled out materials, was a 67.36% of our students were passing with an 80% or better, because it's a pass or repeat course. And in order to pass, they have to score an 80% for the course or higher. So that's where we were. And then over a 2-year period, we are now at 84.48% of our students are passing the first time with an 80% or better. So this is something that we're thrilled about. These are 8-week courses. They are taking in sequence. These are the students that we have found struggle the most with technology, but now they are going into curriculum English and other curriculum courses and teaching those students who haven't seen this technology yet how to use the technology. And I have to say that is by far our greatest success, seeing our students in developmental or having just left developmental teaching curriculum students how to use technology. I mean, that has got to be the best thing ever, right? So I want you to see student feedback because I know, we've already talked about how this has benefited them, and you've seen numbers, and our faculty like it because they can edit things directly in the text. They can hint, students, this is what you should know. We can build study guides so you don't have to hear from students, what's on the test after you just went over it. There are so many great things about this platform, and faculty love that they come prepared. They're not getting the wrong additions. It's really benefited us, but I want you to hear from our students too how it's benefiting them. So the students say, they can afford books now. This is a really great way for them to lighten their load of their book bags because they know their textbook is there directly in their course. I will never forget the bookstore calling me and telling me that our students were going to the bookstore to buy additional books because they hadn't gone to class first. They were trying to get ahead, and they found out they didn't have to purchase anything else. So they were literally dancing in the bookstore to find out that they didn't have to purchase anything else and that they had money left over. So this has been really amazing. We've heard that they're, happy with their content, that they appreciate it, that they find that it is valuable, that it's directly in Blackboard. So it's encouraging students to engage more with Blackboard than ever before because it's all, linked in there so well. And, I have heard from some students that, sure, I still prefer a printed text and they will get the loose leaf option, but they acknowledge and understand the fact that we have given them this opportunity in order to grant them access to other digital resources and things that we feel like will help their learning and help them throughout their success at Rowan-Cabarrus. So if this is something you're interested in, you think your institution's ready, the first thing I would say is you probably are. We weren't quite sure if we were, but I just felt like in my gut this is something we should pursue, and I was the girl to do it. I could help us get there. And I will tell you, as someone who has firsthand experience, both Cengage and Blackboard are amazing, but there are also other publishers that are equally amazing that partner as well, with Blackboard. And so if you're not a Cengage institution and that's something you're worried about, our initiative and our platform was designed by Cengage, absolutely. And they are wonderful and I work for them. But we have also, introduced other publishers into our platform and it has worked great. So there are templates and things out there that you can use. And we've already designed the platform and we've already designed kind of the model, and I'm glad to share that with you and hold your hand and give you more information if that's something you need. But if you are Cengage and you want to go into this with Cengage and Blackboard, reach out to your consultant. Go ahead and let them know that you'd like to start some pilots and some conversations about this. I can get you any information you'll need on how we did it. We're glad to share that. We already have shared it nationally in lots of other states. I've been to Alabama to talk to them about how we've done it, Virginia, California, lots of different states, so we're glad to help you. But the biggest thing is do not rush this and trust the data and keep your students well in focus and keep them, in the forefront of any decision you make. And don't expect this overnight. It took us 5 years, and yes, it has been a beautiful, beautiful success that I am very proud of. but don't rush it. I felt like if we had rushed it, we may have missed something. But I'm glad to share and glad to help you in any way if this is something you pursue. So I have reached the end of my presentation. I have taken about 45 minutes of your time. At this point, I would love to open it up for questions and see how I can help you.
I've been frantically monitoring the Q&A. Actually, Kim and I have been monitoring. I think we've handled the bulk of the questions. There does seem to be a lot of, there's a lot of questions about the variety of integration options that are available. And we wanted to keep this presentation focused on Cengage, especially your success with Cengage using their integration. And as you mentioned, there are other publishers, and it's
Absolutely.
We have a whole group at Blackboard. I'm part of that team that ensures that we have comparable experiences like what Jenny just covered with other publishers and other products. They're all different because, well, they're all different. And, but they all have that same kind of idea of letting you leverage that content within Blackboard. That's all I'm going to say with this because I don't want to, get off of the rails. But there are many, many different publisher platforms that work in comparable ways to that so that we leave those decisions up to the instructors in the schools and things like that.
Absolutely.
There's just a couple other questions that came in. So actually, this is a great one that comes up all the time about, given problems with the bookstore, did they lose money? So I've often heard that argument.
Yeah, and that's such a good question because we knew we had a partnership pre-established with our bookstore, and we did not want to cut them out of the partnership at all. And so, oftentimes people see this as just a partnership with the publisher, but it's really not. It's a publisher between the institution and Blackboard because Blackboard housed it wonderfully and Cengage integrates beautifully, but then the bookstore is there too. And so the way we, really talked about it was right now at that time, let's say fall 2013, the bookstore was only getting, I think it was 20 to 30% of the business of our students. And so they were, only 20 or 30% were using the bookstore to purchase their materials. And this is not representative of the students that had financial aid because that was more about 60 to 70%. This is just the students who were opting to buy because they felt like they could afford it. But 25 to 30% of our students were not buying at all. So they were not utilizing the bookstore or any other place. But through this model, our bookstore has gotten 100% of our enrollment because we did not do the opt-out model. And so, no, they have not lost money. We have opened up their shelves. They have been able to open up a different bookstore location because they're not having to house so many textbooks. They don't have to deal with, the lines and the complaints and the order miscommunications and things like that. It has been really beautiful for us. And we have been, very, very, blessed with that partnership with Barnes & Noble and what they've done to help us. So, yeah, it's been great for them and for us.
Great. I'm answering this question here on board about, is it reasonable to just engage like one professor using Cengage? And, my take on that from a functional and technical perspective is, of course, you could have one person using one integration, one person using three, a couple different faculty using whatever. In the terms of how it works and teaching styles and all that, it's designed to work just fine. But I think I would say with the inclusive access model that you've described, that only becomes practical and usable when you have I'll say luxury, but burden of everybody on board. Because, there's really, I don't see a practical way to roll that part out. On the Blackboard side, though, if you've got, one instructor who wants to use a Cengage, MindTap integration in one course, they can totally do that. There's nothing that they can just do it. And the students will go to the bookstore and buy the books the way they normally would, and they'd buy an access code. But if you want to start talking about that bigger thing, I think, you do want to have a whole program on board or a whole school or something like that.
I agree. And if you want it to be the most, absolutely, and if you want it to be the most cost effective, clearly it's going to benefit you to have the most courses and the most sections using the same platform and the way you can roll it out. So yeah, absolutely. But yeah, there are multiple ways you can do this. Absolutely. This is just the model we use and have found success in. Absolutely.
Great. I don't see any more questions in the chat. I think we got them all answered.
Okay, great.
Alex, do you want to close us out? Or is that up to me? I didn't want to make the...
Sure, I can do that.
Okay.
So thank you again for everyone who joined, and thank you to Jenny for such a great presentation and Derek for answering all of our questions. As a reminder, a recording and a copy of this presentation deck will be mailed to you later today. So thank you again.
Great, thank you.